strippers and bouncers of strip clubs. What's the most memorable thing to happen to you while working? Former stripper here. I once had a guy pay for an hour in the private room. We just sat and spoke most of the time. He told me about his son who had a disability, about his wife being a full-time carer for their son and her mother. Then, out of nowhere, he offers me $500 to dig my heels into his testicles. Another one who was a regular was a guy who liked to draw. He would always come in with a tiny scrap of paper and would sketch me. He was a really nice guy who taught me a lot about art and how to see the beauty in different things. Stripper here. Very first night, stripping some old guy in overalls with pretty poor dental hygiene asked me how many fillings I have. I told him one. He asked if it was silver or gold. Ah, silver. Then he asks if I will open my mouth and let him look at my teeth. I was pretty timid, so I did, and he complained it was too dark to see well. A few months later, I see him again in another club, but he has a fucking flashlight this time. He tells me he wants a dance, and then when we get to the back says that he really just wants to look at my teeth. So I open my mouth and he's annoyed at my one filling and otherwise healthy teeth. He insisted I find a girl with bad teeth, so I said I'd find one, and then hid in the dressing room until he left. I also used to have a regular who liked to touch my armpits and liked for me to kick him in the balls. One time he asked me to watch porn with him. He was watching CGI porn with Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, but they both had dicks. I worked in a club that had a catwalk type addition to the stage, and at the end of it was a spinning pole. It was very poorly designed as it was not a very wide space around the pole, so the sheer amount of people I'd accidentally kick in the face while doing pole tricks is insane, and like 80% of them would apologize to me and tip me for ruining my flow. I always got a bit of a giggle about that. Also, hands down, the worst was getting projectile vomited on while giving a lap dance like butt naked, covered head to toe in puke, and not even an apology. Former stripper here. I had a guy come in and buy 60 minutes in the champagne room just to give me a totally normal back massage the entire time. Had another guy spend $100 just to smell my feet. Edited. I remembered this gem. Another chatty middle-aged guy paid for 30 minutes in the champagne room, $160, and 10 minutes into it, I'm no longer dancing, and he's having a serious discussion with me about investing in the stock market. I actually learned a lot of great advice. The thing that first comes to mind is the time my friend was climbing the pole when it fell straight out of the ceiling. It fell like a tree, and the bitch rode that thing right up until the second it was about to hit the side of the stage, then jumped off, landed cleanly on her 7-inch stilettos, and stomped back to the dressing room. Like she hadn't just almost broken her neck. They put the damn pole back up, and girls were back on it within like an hour. Not me, though. I left and still don't trust that thing. Former stripper. I had a guy buy 2 lap dances from me and spent the time in the booth, holding me and massaging my back. He had just gotten out of prison, where he had been for 23 years for double homicide. He insisted that he was innocent, but he witnessed it and told me a wild story about a cocaine-fueled car theft ring in the 80s that he was a part of. He also offered me $500 to go to his hotel room and have a bubble bath and another massage. I refused, but another girl I worked with had taken him up on a similar offer a few nights before and said, he's really not that bad. There was another guy who liked to be called Big Daddy. He was nearly deaf and couldn't understand a single thing I said, but he would just pass me $20 bills every few minutes while I listened to him talk about his fishing tackle business. Oh, and the time a guy jizzed in his pants during a lap dance and got mad at me about it. Bouncer here. Had a guy have a mental break, steal a car, steal a loaded 45, and came to my bar talking about how he learned that he was God and could take anything he wanted. He proceeded to run to the back of the bar to the Christmas tree, December 2018, and start opening presents that a biker gang had left for their party that was going to happen that night. He was arrested shortly after. Not a security guard or stripper, but I was in Phoenix a few years ago. I was hammered drunk and decided to go to a strip club that I saw on one of those little business cards that promoters hand out. When I was walking in, I noticed that the guys walking in front of me were Sammy Watkins and Brian Dawkins, NFL players. I said hi to them and chatted for a minute. When I went to pay my cover, the lady at the register informed me that the gentleman in front of me had already paid for me. Former Vegas stripper here, from 2004 to 2015. We used to have a guy come in and pay girls $300 to sit on his lap and fart on him. Sometimes he would want a girl to fart on his face. I never personally farted for him. Another dude came in and requested me for VIP. As I'm dancing for him, he just keeps sniffing handfuls of my hair. Second song in, he just tells me to let him smell my hair. Cool, sure. $250 to sniff my hair. But then he starts this animalistic growling while snorting my fucking jufrop. Creeped me out and I went back on the floor. Ow, I miss those days. I was going to use a throwaway, but fuck it. I was a stripper in my 20s for a couple of years. The absolute most memorable thing was when everyone working at the club dropped acid, save for, I think, 1 or 2 girls, the bouncer, the DJ, the stage guy, the house mome, the door guy, and about 10-15 girls were just high up for the whole night. And it was so hilarious and great. It was a very slow night. I'm thinking dead of winter on a Tuesday or something. And I guess we all just said, fuck it, and all took a hit. Can't remember who brought it. At one point, I remember feeling really paranoid that I'd be found out, and then realizing that I'm a stripper and literally nobody cared that I was high. That was so liberating. It was a night of naked girls goofing off on stage, awesome and weird music we normally weren't allowed to play. Our club banned rap at the time, trying on all the costumes and just a general blast. Nobody made money. We didn't even try. It was one of the most memorable trips I have ever had. Ex-stripper here. Funniest. I fell off the pole and busted my back, but I was dancing for a nice regular, and he didn't make too much fun of me. Or maybe the time my work wife and I did a doubles dance for a guy who DJ at another club, and all he wanted to do was smell our butt cracks and feet. Good. Hula hooping on stage while it's slow. A sweet 21 or 22 years old guy who paid $250 to tell me how pretty I was for 15 minutes in the champagne room. Getting a guy interested by talking about World of Warcraft. He bought 7 dances. Bad. Guy who grabbed my bare pussy, fully nude club, during a dance. I reacted on instinct and grabbed him by the throat, which worked, but I was lucky it didn't escalate the situation and he backed off. You know when you almost get into a car accident and you don't think to beep your horn? I had that, except the last thing on my mind was calling the bouncers for help when that should have been first. Had a friend that wasn't satisfied with the stripper's performance, so he tossed a quarter on stage. Seemed like slow motion as I watched it bounce and hit the stage. Music skips and we are promptly tossed out. I was at a club inn with a shower that was attached to the stage, and they would do shower shows every few hours or whatever. So the time comes for the next shower show and the dancer hops in and starts doing her thing. She energetically jumping up and down in the shower when all of a sudden there is a loud popping cracking sound and she was gone. The floor of the shower is gone and she had dropped under the stage. They apparently had no support under the fiberglass shower floor, and it finally gave way. The poor girl was cut up pretty good from the sharp edges, soaking wet and covered in whatever grime was under that state. Was a bouncer barback for a few years at a topless bar. A few fights, which you never want to happen because it bursts the fantasy bubble and everyone clears out. And lots of stripper drama between girls. Amateur night was pretty fun though, especially seeing your old high school crushes show up and get topless. I'm not a stripper, but someone still tried to tip me. I know a lot of the girls that work at this one club and has gone to visit. I was wearing a miniskirt and tank top. I walked over to a friend while she was dancing to talk and tip her. I talked to her for a few minutes while she continued to dance. Just to the right of me were a group of guys that were tipping her too. Next thing I know, I feel a hand running up my leg. Try to put money in my underwear. I continued to talk to my friend, but pushed the hand away immediately without causing a scene. I then turned to him, and with a confused look, he said he was just trying to tip me too. I said thank you, but I don't work here. He was completely embarrassed and highly apologetic. I laughed, reassured him I wasn't offended, and walked away. Kind of related. There was a stripper doing an AMA once. I thought I'd be funny, and I'm a dad, so I told her I was refinishing an old oak table that had been painted. This was true. And how should I strip it? This girl goes into detail about a chemical stripper to buy, what kind of knife to use, plastic, to wrap it in sarin wrap for a while before scraping. Very detailed. Well, damned if she wasn't spot on. It worked like a charm. Who knew? Drove my roommate and his wife to her audition at a strip bar in Portland. Full nude. I was planning on going to hang out at a nearby store while she danced, and he insisted I hang out and watch. Most awkward 20 minutes. After that, I was her regular driver until she got pregnant. Stripper here. I can't limit it to one because I have two. A guy who came in, spent $400 for 20 minutes of my time. The entire 20 minutes, he was talking about how I was perfect spank bank material and he would never dare to think he was able to ask me on a date. The clubs in my area have a lot of girls who wear jeweled butt plugs while dancing. One time, a girl was on the pole, gripping with her thighs while hanging upside down. She went to do a motion similar to a sight-up, so that she could grab the pole with her hand again. I held witness to this girl's butt plug shooting out of her ass and landing on stage. It broke. Somehow, I was one of 3 people who even noticed, with one of the others being the butt launcher. She had to discreetly pick up the jewel and plug off of the stage while cleaning before the next set. When she got off stage, she played it off and acted cool. The only patron who noticed tipped her extra because he was impressed. I've never told anybody about the butt plug story, since this is the first time I had the anonymity to do so. It was hilarious to witness. But remarkably, I stayed stone-faced and even consoled the poor girl. Ex-bouncer here. Our club security participated in some partner gig that the owner had with his buddy, who owned another club. We were never introduced to his buddy. They told us to be extra tight on the front stage area security. Well, shithead comes up in there looking like he thinks he's getting past me discreetly, and I tell him he has to back it up and leave. He backs up about 1 foot length and stays watching the performers. I give him a final warning and even tell him that I'll be forced to personally escort him out. He pretends to not hear me, so I pick his ass up and begin carrying him off premises and to the entrance. Meanwhile, he's screaming the name of my boss, all pissy sounding. Turns out I was canning my boss's business partner from his own gig. I was pretty embarrassed, but also didn't regret anything because I was doing my job, and he basically asked for it. Later that night, about an hour and a half later, and only 10 minutes after the show ended, had a seizure. They had to call the MPs and everything. I woke up feeling awful, and that same business partner of my boss's, who had been a huge asshole, was crouched down, speaking to me very kindly and making sure I was okay. I'll never forget that,